All right, let's get ready to go.
But I don't want to go to school.
Oh, you're going to school.
Why?
Because it's the law. Hey, everybody. My name is Dana Paul. I am giving my presentation today about the Compulsory Attendance Law. The Compulsory Attendance Law was referred to as a state legislative law for school attendance. This law was put into place to ensure that students were attending school and parents were taking the responsibility and making sure they were in school. This law states that between the ages of 6 and 16, and it can vary from state to state, children are required to go to school. And it also helps create laws for the number of days of the school year, enrollment requirements, and truancy provisions. The law was first introduced in 1642 by the Massachusetts Bay Colony. And at that time, the law was mainly put into place to make sure that parents were educating their students with religious principles, and they were also expected to teach them reading and writing and also a trade. And eventually this law advanced, and when it advanced, the responsibilities were passed on to the school system, and the schools are expected to educate children. But with that in mind, the parents still had responsibilities that they had to make sure the children were following, and they were making sure that they were in the classroom. Here are some of the interesting findings that I found. Each state has their own set of attendance laws. It varies from state to state. Georgia's state laws are here on this page, and they kind of give you a rundown of what our expectations are for attendance. Of course, with school attendance, there are exceptions. There are different situations that are understandable. I know at my school in particular, we had a child that had a heart defect, and of course with that he was enrolled in our school, but he was also going to hospitals, and he was not able to attend the classroom like he was supposed to, but he was not in violation of the law considering his situation. So there are a variety of reasons that a child could have an exception to this law, and they would not be in violation. Some of the interesting things that I found out were, like I said, each state varies. Some states expect children to start at 5, and some expect children to start as late as 7 years old. Also, children have an exit age that varies from state to state, and that can be anywhere from 16 to 18 years old. Another one of the things that I kind of identified with were the penalties that parents have for not following the law. When I was teaching at a different school system, not the one I'm currently at, but the previous school system, we had put in place a pretty serious set of standards for attendance. We were having a hard time getting parents to take it seriously. They were not bringing their children to school, and I mean, we had kids that were just missing, up to 2-3 days a week. And we put in place a rule that stated that after five absences of any kind, we would be doing a defects report on the student, and having that put in place, it really offended a lot of parents, but it also kept a lot of parents on track and doing the right thing. And the school took it seriously, and our attendance, it changed drastically, which was important. And I mean, that had a big effect on the students' academic averages, because they were in the classroom learning rather than being at home due to negligence. Another thing that I thought was pretty interesting was the penalties for the older children. They could actually lose their driver's license. And me personally, I can remember in high school that being a big deal. There were several people that I grew up with that did not want to lose their license, and they were actually discussing dropping out of school, but due to the fact that they would lose their driver's license, they were choosing to stay. So there's consequences for both parents and the children. I chose this topic because of my personal experience. I actually teach kindergarten. And when you teach kindergarten, each little portion of the day is important. One of my students would come in every single day 20, 30 minutes to an hour late. And this threw her off so bad, not just academically, but it also hindered her behavior. And I had to really stress to mom how important it was to have her in the classroom. And it became a big issue. She was struggling because she was walking in the middle of a lesson. She was having to unpack. I wasn't able to get her in their typical routine that everybody else had already established. And that was only a portion of her day. She was there for the remainder, but that just shows how important it is for a child to be in the classroom learning. Some of the other things that I've seen children that they miss every Friday. I had a child, and this was another thing that we had to handle. We had a child that every Friday, they just kind of took the Friday off. And that caused that child to struggle academically and almost had to repeat kindergarten because he had not been in the classroom to receive an education. And, parents have to understand that when you're 5, 6 years old, you have no control over making it to school. And honestly, they're setting a poor example for their kids. So parents have to step up. They have to be responsible and understand the seriousness of attendance in school. These kids were missing this. They were missing the opportunity to learn. And that's why I feel that this is an issue that really needs to be given a lot of thought and consideration from teachers and parents. The two court cases that I chose were, the two court cases that I chose were Wisconsin versus Jonas Yoder. Wisconsin versus Jonas Yoder. This was a case that actually occurred with the Amish. The Amish were saying that the two court cases that I chose to discuss was Wisconsin versus Jonas Yoder. This was a court case that the Amish took on. The Amish people were making the choice to pull their children out of school in 8th grade. Well, this violated the Compulsory Attendance Law, and these people were being fined for this violation. Well, the argument was that this was a religious choice, that they truly believed that their religious freedoms were being violated because they believed that their children did not need an education after 8th grade. In the Amish community, they focus on learning trades, and they felt that the education was not a healthy part of their children's development. This court case actually went on, and they actually won their case because they were right. This was a violation of their religious rights. The other case that I studied and learned about was the Pierce versus the Society of Sisters. This case took place in 1925. Oregon passed the Compulsory Education Act, and it targeted the elimination of parochial schools, such as military schools and Catholic schools. Well, the argument that the Society of Sisters had was that they felt that the act limited parents' freedom. The parents were not allowed to make choices about their children's education, and they felt that this was a violation of their rights, and that they took this to the court. This actually went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ruled that it was infringing on their 14th Amendment rights, and and that the law was unconstitutional. So, there are times when I think about this, I think that this law was put in place with good intentions, but of course there are always different circumstances that we have to consider, and we have to have flexibility and see that everybody's situation is not the same. And the neat thing about this, I will say, about the Pierce versus Society of Sisters was they stood up for their civil rights, and this was one of the first times that civil rights issues were being addressed. And, it really opened up the door for cases like Roe versus Wade and other civil rights cases. And, it was the beginning of something good, and people were starting to stand up for what they believed in. In conclusion, I feel like this act was put in place to improve education. Kids need to be in school. Kids need to be in attendance. They need to make sure that they are there receiving the education that we are providing them. Also, it is holding them responsible, and it's holding parents responsible. And but like I said, with the two court cases that I presented, there will be exceptions to the law. Circumstances are not always going to be the same, and we kind of have to be open-minded to the fact that everybody's situation is different. So there are times that when a law that was put into place may not serve everyone, and there could be situations that need to be addressed. But overall, I think it's important that kids stay in school. I think it's important that parents support their education and make sure they're in class so that they can learn. Thank you very much.